largely immigrant, largely immigrant population up there. You know, really tight knit community. You know, went to high school and stuff out there, and then when I had to leave, I went to UC Berkeley for undergraduate, for my undergraduate work. It's funny because like you know, when I say I came from a small town, I mean a really small town. Like the first science class I had at Berkeley was in this big auditorium, and in this auditorium there was like hundreds of people could fit in there, right? And it's like I remember sitting down in that first auditorium, thinking, wow, like everybody in my whole entire town could fit in this one place, right? So so college was kind of like a culture shock for me. Like it kind of I went from a really small pond, you know, to like this huge ocean of people and ideas and cultures and food and stuff. And so it was a really like eye-opening experience for me. That's where I started to like develop my interest in medicine and science. Joined like some after-school programs, and gonna started like to mold my try to like mold my kind of my course to medicine. I was able to get into medical school. I had to take a year off to work to get like to get some money to apply to all the medical schools and do all of the applications and course test prep courses that you have to do to be able to get into medical school. Got into medical school, went to UC Irvine. In Irvine, one of the reasons I chose Irvine was to do this program that's where I met Dr. Campos Spitzy, which is going to be on shortly. And this was a program that was focused on the health and care of the Latino communities, right? So it's called the Prime LC program, the program in medical education for Latino communities. So that's where I met a lot of wonderful people, including Dr. Campos Spitzy and my wife, actually. So my future wife. So as part of that program, we had to do a second degree. So we all took like a year or two off during medical school to pursue another degree in higher education. I decided to do mine in public health. So I went to UCLA and did my coursework at UCLA for public health with a focus in community health sciences, which is like a long way to say I'm really interested in the health of communities and populations, not just, you know, the health of like the one person that I'm seeing in front of me in my clinic, for example. And in that program, I was able to get an idea of how to what are the things that affect the health of communities, not just of a one person, and you know, start to get into how to make those better. So I finished that, went back to school, to medical school, finished my medical school, started my, after you finish medical school, you have to apply to what we call residencies, which is kind of like the training program where you actually start practicing as a doctor and not so much learning about how to be a doctor, right? So during that residency program, I did 3 years at Harbor UCLA for my residency program in internal medicine. And after that, I applied to cardiology as a subspecialty, like a niche program within internal medicine. I finished that a year and a half ago now. And now I'm just part of the faculty at Harbor UCLA Medical Center. And that's kind of been, you know, in a nutshell, been my journey to seeing you guys here today.
How has our guest practiced communal responsibility? Because I'm so happy to hear some of his answers, because it's kind of what we've been teaching about. So someone in the chat put one way that Dr. Ignacio has talked about communal responsibility in his journey. So we want to show him we're paying attention. So someone needs to put that in the chat, please, or you can respond verbally. Or else I'm just gonna call on someone. So we're just giving them some think time. All right. So let's have Larry. Do you hear him? What was something he said about communal responsibility, about helping the community?
Help people.
All right, so I don't know if your mic was on, but they said that you were a doctor, practice being a doctor to help people. But specifically, what community do you want to help? So I'm gonna put that in the chat right now. In his town, very good, thank you, Emiliano. His community. All right. So Ignacio, just to let you know, we're doing this thing and the kids are gonna participate more because it's definitely gonna affect their grade this semester. Like guarantee it, like we're not gonna be shy because you guys are great students. So we're definitely gonna need you to participate when we tell you to. And they're doing this thing called agents of change. So we're practicing agents of change, and our big essential question is what's our responsibility within the community? Right? Like what is our response, especially like you said, with health issues and health issues related to Latinos. Could you tell me maybe or tell our class why that was important that you wanted to join an organization that targeted helping out the Latino community? Because just to give a little background, we've been analyzing movies like The Walkouts and learning about Chavez Ravine and the Escalante movie, just so we understand the history of what it used to be like to where we're at right now. So go ahead.
What excellent like primary literature to focus on, right? Like it's incredible how the past kind of dictates or at least informs our future, right? So like all those things are like so incredibly important. So the reason for me personally, and this is like, I think it's really important to like understand, like everybody has their own sense of community, right? Like the sense of community that you build is your own. That like I have my own, and you know, everybody that's listening in kind of might have very similar, maybe a little different, maybe really different senses of community, right? But the point is to give back and to feel responsible that you as a member and participant of that community, however it is that you define it, right? That you have a responsibility to make that community better, right? So the reason for me that I identify so much with, and you know, and feel like such an incredible passion towards the Latino community is like, you know, like I'll take you guys all the way back to when I was growing up, right? Again, my town was 350 people. It was tiny, little, right? And in that kind of town, like everybody kind of knows each other. Everybody kind of, you know, for good or bad, like everybody kind of knows your business. But it's hard to get into a lot of trouble, right? Because there's not a lot of people, not a lot of stuff to do around there, right? I just remember when I was little, my mom would go to her doctor's appointments, like to when she was, you know, pregnant with my little brothers and sisters, or just whenever anybody would get sick. And I just remember how, you know, nobody spoke Spanish at the doctor. Like nobody understood what my mom was trying to tell them. Like here I was, like a 6-7-year-old kid trying to translate for my mom, who was like having like, you know, symptoms, to this doctor who had no idea, who was like didn't really pay attention, who like wasn't really trying to hear what was going on, right? And so like I just carry those things with me, you know. Like I remember like every one of my little brothers and sisters almost died at some point. Like one of my brothers had like this fever to like 104 or something when we were like little, and like nobody could like figure out what was going wrong with him until we got him to like a big city doctor. My other little sister, when we were in Mexico, she almost like, so there's like all of us had like near death experiences when I was little. And part of it was because where I grew up, there's like no healthcare. Like the nearest hospital is like an hour away, right? There's no clinics in my town. The nearest clinic, which is like halfway open, is like 30-40 minutes away. And when you're like kind of like new and trying to figure out like the whole culture of the United States, and you know, you're still maybe a little scared because like immigration and stuff is all around, like people don't go anywhere to get care. So I grew up with that. That's where I grew up. That's like how I manifest my idea of what healthcare is, right? Like it's this thing that you go to when you're dying, when you're like about to die. And then like as I grew older and started going to college, I started understanding how incredibly wrong that idea is, right? Like healthcare should keep you healthy, it's not death care, right? It's not like you go here when you're about to die because you have no other choice, right? And so that in my mind, like I was in college, being like, oh wow, like this is how it's supposed to work, right? And it took me until that time to really understand what the disparities are between some people and others, right? So for me, having grown up in the Latino community, being Latino, being of Mexican ancestry, being obviously born in this country, loving this country, of course, but definitely having my roots and all that, and the culture and my place. I can't move forward without looking back at all the people that helped me along the way, and that was my community, right? Like they were the ones that helped, bought those like candies from me when they really didn't need to when I was little, when they urged me along when I was like, in elementary and high school. So, you can't move forward without looking back at all the people that kind of helped you along the way. And for me, that was such an important part of what I do moving forward.
Oh, thank you, Ignacio. That's so awesome about how you bring in the community together. Before we introduce Brenda, I want all my students to put in the chat, what do they consider one of their primary communities? Because I heard you say like it could be different for everyone, and I definitely agree. Like to you, who is your community? Okay, there could be definitely different levels to it. So everyone needs to put it in right now. So go ahead and start putting in who is your community. Remember that to be accountable to our community in this classroom, you have to participate. So everyone's gonna, and the good thing is I'm gonna have this on record. So like I'm gonna see who's participating. Awesome. You guys can start typing now, start sharing. Right here, I consider my community to be my school. Somebody said Boyle Heights. Another one said Boyle Heights. Los Angeles. People in her neighborhood. Someone said their family and their soccer team. People in your town, Boyle Heights. Boyle Heights. All right, so that's awesome. So remember, like our big essential question, whether you're in Mr. Contrell's class or Miss Torres's class, is like, what's the communal responsibility of people, right? I know it changes for everybody, but like when we're doing, in this class, we're really focusing on COVID, and Mr. Contrell's class, we're focusing on the environmental issues. All right, so now I'm really happy to introduce Brenda. Thank you, Ignacio, for coming a little bit early. And Brenda, could you introduce yourself? Give us a quick intro.
Sure, and let me know whether you hear me. Are you guys hearing me pretty good?
Yes.
Okay, and can I ask your students, can you guys tilt your camera so I can see your beautiful faces? I am mostly seeing foreheads and hairlines. Can I see some pretty faces, please?
Andrew, he's doing what he needs to do. Thank you. And that, Becca, Diana, you need to put your computer up.
All those wonderful air conditioning systems are great, but
yeah,
places are much better.
All right.
Now, so you can show your head up.
Me llamo Brenda Campos. My name's Brenda Campos. I grew up in Southern California in a tiny, tiny town called Rosemont. I was born in Burbank, which is close to LA, but when I was about in second grade, my parents decided to move to the desert because it was a lot cheaper to live there, and my dad found a pretty good job out there. My parents are both from El Salvador, so they're Central American immigrants, came back in the day in the 1980s to this country and had 4 kids. So I'm one of 4 children. I'm the third child. My mom still only speaks Spanish, and so thankfully, yo también soy bilingüe, and I love that. I guess fast forward, grew up, always thought I might want to be a doctor. I'm not quite sure what put that idea in my head. I always had that idea in my head. Like I said, came from a very small town, not like Boyle Heights at all. It was just a 1 street kind of town. We had the main street, and everything was on that street, from the post office to the gas station to the elementary school, the middle school, and the high school were all on the same street. So, you know, it was the kind of place where everybody knew each other. My parents were very religious when I was growing up. So when Mr. Cruz, when he asked what community meant, and I was trying to think, when I was in, you guys are 7th grade, right? 7th graders, middle school. When I was in middle school, a lot of my community was actually the church I grew up in. So they were my family. I had my parents, but my aunts and uncles lived far away, and so kind of our makeshift community was my church back then. I'm not super into church and religion anymore, but kudos if you still are. But yeah, I was just reflecting on community at that time of my life. Anyway, went to college at UC Davis, which is in Sacramento, you know, state capital. Well, it's close to there. It's about 15 or 20 minutes north. And became a pre-medical student there, took all the science classes that I needed to get into medical school. And then went to medical school, and that's where I met Nacho Velasquez. We went to a special program. Nacho might have already shared some of this, with a focus on the Latino community. So my heart has always been to give back to the Latino community. I grew up around like that fake family that I was talking about. My church family, from when I was young, was made up of a lot of construction workers and housekeepers, and people who weren't getting paid very much because people knew that their employers knew that they were undocumented, so they were allowed to really take advantage of them. And that always broke my heart. Even when I was young, I understood that that was not fair, and I wanted to make a difference in some way. And I was pretty good at school, and I figured that that could be a way I could give back to my community. And I love what I do every day. I want to say at least 90% of my patients are Spanish speakers. I do family medicine. So our little tagline is we do cradle to grave. I used to deliver babies as of less than a year ago, although I stopped doing that. But would deliver babies and take care of the pregnant mom through her pregnancy. We'd have the baby, and then the baby would become my patient. And I've been at the same clinic for 7 years now. So some of the babies that I caught are 7-year-olds now, which is crazy to me. I also work closely with our college in town to try to help our pre-med students get ready to apply to medical school. But yes, I'm all about helping our minority and first generation students achieve academic success. And it starts in middle school, you know, it starts young. So pónganse las pilas, chicos, like, you know, give it all you got, because if you can succeed here and then in high school and then go to college, whatever route that takes, if you have to do community college first or whatever, but you know, for your own community to give back to them, you gotta put in some time and effort, even though sometimes, you know, classes can be boring and all that, but do it for yourself, and do it for your community and for the future. I want to show off the shirt I'm wearing. So I have this shirt is many years old now. But it says,
I remember that shirt.
You remember this shirt? It says down here, empowering you to be the future of medicine. So right here, empowering you to be the future of medicine. So we want you guys in this medical detective class to think about being doctors in the future and to know that you can do it. There's been a lot of people who've grown up in similar places like you guys. When I was up until I was 7 years old, I shared a bedroom with all 3 of my siblings. All 4 of us were in the same little bedroom full of cockroaches and everything. And you can be fast forward 15 years. Oh God, it's probably more than that, but but you could be here where Nacho and I are as doctors, giving back to your community and helping those patients who don't speak English, and being an advocate for them. I also have my MLK pin. I put a lot of swag on this morning. Single payer healthcare, equality for all. So Martin Luther King always said that one of the greatest injustices was health disparities. So somebody not being able to go to the, like, I kind of heard the tail end of what Nacho was saying, but to feel like you can't go to the doctor because you can't pay for it, that shouldn't happen, right? Not in our country. Yeah, and then my badge to prove to you that I'm a doctor, right there, doctora.
All right, so remember, I'm looking for the student of the week as well, just to let you know. Somebody comment on how Brenda has been practicing her communal responsibility, or how her communal responsibility inspired her to do what she's doing. So someone in the chat, a couple people, please put that, just to like check for some understanding. So while they're doing that, what we're gonna do, Nancy and Brenda, first of all, thank you so much.
Of
Like,
course.
hopefully the kids understand that you guys are working doctors. And I remember you guys came to my class like 10 years ago when you guys were students, but I know now it's even another level of commitment because you have that, you have your work commitment. So I really, really appreciate it. And I'm sure that the kids are gonna really, really appreciate it too. 'Cause sometimes they ask me questions and I have to tell them, well, I'm not a doctor. I just took a summer course and my expertise is in teaching, not the actual content. But what we're gonna do, we're gonna show you some of the work that the students did, what they're working on, and they're gonna have questions to you guys. They're related to COVID. I know it might not be each person's specialty, but you guys could just share any information with us on that. And that would be great. Let me see for the technical difficulties. All right, so this is what they've been working. We've been doing COVID campaigns. Okay. Move this over here. I have a dual screen, so it gets confusing sometimes. All right.
It was working and then it got real skinny.
Yep.
No? All right.
Oh, there we go. This is great stuff, guys.
Yeah, I want to take these and post them all over my clinic.
Yeah. Mhm. This is seriously awesome, guys.
Yeah. Super impressive.
Mr. Cruz, impressive. Your students are impressive.
Yeah, they're good students. They're ready. A lot of
Get
them
it.
have shown that they told me they're prepping for medical school.
Yeah.
At least 7 of them. Maybe we'll have some more.
For sure.
All right, so what we're gonna do now, we're gonna have a Q&A for like 10, 15 minutes, and then for 15 minutes, I'll split you guys up and I'll let the kids, just talk to you freely about whatever they kind of want. I'll go in and out of both places. But this will be kind of like the more like academic part. So we're gonna have, right now, you guys start putting your questions on the chat that are related to COVID, the ones that we all shared the other day. Start putting them in the chat. So
I saw Nitzel up there. I had to comment.
Shout out.
okay, that's all.
Shout out to Itzel.
Wow. So
Sorry,
what-
I veered that conversation a different way.
Yeah.
Back to what Mr. Cruz said.
Oh no, I was saying like, hey, whatever you got, that's awesome, making those connections. And we're actually working on in our school, like doing cultural responsive teaching and showing people what it means, like hey, making those little connections just to like help the kids get engaged and then like use that to do their processing. All right. So as they're putting their questions in, like
Oh, that's a good one.
you guys, give like a brief 1 minute, maybe, or tell us your expertise, maybe related to COVID, because I know you guys are experts overall, but that way we kind of know. All right, let's just answer these questions on that.
Yeah,
Those are some
Alright.
great questions already.
yeah.
So let's go.
What, or how is the format? Do we just answer right now? Or are we splitting up yet or not yet?
No, we're gonna split up the like unstructured time.
Okay,
Right here, how do you deal with your mental health when treating patients with COVID? Or just patients overall? Dealing with, delivering babies or people that have heart conditions. Like, how do you deal with it mentally to take care of yourself?
I'll let Nacho start and then I'll follow.
All right. So that's such an important question. And like, I think it's really important because like, it's a question that as we were, I don't know, Dr. Campos Mitzi could comment to her, but as I was going through, I think my own mental health and like my health was always like such like on the back burner. Like it was never like the most important thing that I had to do. You always have all of these things, like, you have all of this work to do. And your own, like my own mental health always kind of came last. It wasn't until honestly, like in the last couple of years after I started having my kids that I was like, wow, like if I work myself to death, right, it's not just me that it affects, right? Of course it affects me and that's not a good thing, but it affects like so many more other people. So what I've started to do to like make sure that I stick with my mental health is to have one or two things outside of medicine, outside of just like work, that I truly love to do. And like, I always make time for that, no matter what. Like, even if I know that, I'm not going to get like, as much sleep as as I would have otherwise, or whatever, I always make some time. So for me, it's become one of my kids, my son plays soccer, and I love practicing soccer with him and seeing him play soccer. It's like one of the things that keeps me happy and motivated. And so, 3 or 4 times a week after I get home from work, we just go out and we just go practice soccer, and we just got to play soccer together. I watch the soccer games. And so I think in general, keeping your mental health is like so important, which is why I think the question is awesome. And my advice would be just to like have 1 or 2 things. Obviously you got to get work done, right? You can't just like not do things that you're supposed to do, but always have that 1 or 2 things that you really love to do, that make you happy, that make you motivated, that make you happy to get up in the morning. And like always have those with you in your life somehow, right? Whether that's dancing or music or video production, whatever it is, right? And it might change, but yeah, that's what I would recommend. That's what I do, and it's helped me out like tremendously.
Yeah. I want to say, like, I'm sure Dr. Velasquez already mentioned this, but he's married to Dr. Chinchilla Velasquez. I forget if she hyphenated.
Yeah,
But
she did. It's okay.
she did. No, none of that. Too long, way too long.
Whatever.
But she is an ICU doctor. She's a pulmonologist. So her specialty are the lungs, and she works in the ICU in the Los Angeles area. So as you can imagine, she has like lived every moment of the last 2 years. It has been COVID. That's her whole like medical existence. So yeah, like and then Nacho's her support system, and obviously it's hit everybody, but I feel like in her line of work, it's probably definitely hit the hardest. So I'm always impressed with seeing their Facebook pictures and that they are keeping their mental health. And I just saw the most adorable family Halloween pictures of Peter Pan that you've ever seen in your life. And I really admire that about them, that they, as a couple who are both in healthcare, with Dinora working like ICU shifts and just seeing COVID over and over again, they've been able to really stay balanced. And I think that's really important. I was delivering babies up until January of this year. And because of that, I wasn't allowed to see anybody with COVID in the clinic. They were protecting our postpartum and newborn population because I worked in the hospital once a week. But starting January of this year, I actually stopped delivering babies. And so I started working COVID clinic in our clinic. And the clinic that I work, we call it a safety net clinic. So what that means is when you don't have insurance or you have Medicaid and it doesn't cover as much as it should, we're the clinic you go to because we're the most affordable clinic in our town, and we're a huge clinic in our town. We're not Los Angeles, but for our town, we're the biggest clinic. And so the patients who've been the most sick with COVID have been the patients that come to our clinic, and we have been able to keep the doors open. Whether you have a cough, fever, or shortness of breath, which are kind of what we call the 3 cardinal signs of COVID. There's a lot of other symptoms, but those are kind of the 3 big ones that we focus on. So for those, we see everyone. We never closed our doors to anybody with a fever, and we just figured out a way to put them in a different waiting room so that they're not spreading the virus to healthy people. And then when I see them in clinic, we call it COVID clinic, and it's 10 hours that I work, and it's in full PPE. So I wear my N95, I wear a face shield, I wear a gown, I wear gloves, and I change out for every visit because every patient I'm seeing that day is there because they're concerned they might have COVID. And unfortunately, the positivity rate in our county has been actually pretty high. So mental health wise, it actually, believe it or not, because I only do that once on Thursdays is my COVID day. So I work COVID clinic all of Thursday. I really love it. My father-in-law, and I'm going to get a little bit emotional, but my father-in-law passed away January of this year from COVID. So that's my husband's dad. And I've been married for a long time. So he was kind of like my second dad. I've known him for almost 20 years and kind of grew up with him. And he passed away from COVID, in January. And it was right before the vaccine was available. Literally weeks, which is heartbreaking for me. Like if If the vaccine had come out like 1 month sooner, he would probably be alive. And so anyway, the virus has like struck really close to home for us. And the further we've gotten, right, it's been like a year almost since the vaccine was available, and the people who aren't vaccinated now, it's not because they can't have access to it, like it's everywhere, right? It's people who need convincing, who need the campaign, all those like amazing PowerPoints you guys came up with. And that's my job every day, especially in COVID clinic, because in COVID clinic, the people showing up are usually the people who are not vaccinated. So they're coming in because they're worried, they have a fever, or they were around somebody who just had a fever. And they're the people who have held out this long without the vaccine, and the ones I get to try to convince, right? Like, so in those visits, it's like, okay, we're going to test you today, regardless of what the testing shows. Please, like, like, get vaccinated. Like, and I have all kinds of like work, like I have the New York Times article that came out, I don't know, like a couple months ago, that I have printed out for everybody, that talks about, you know, like pregnant women should be getting it, like everybody should be getting it. And I'm able to share stories like my parents were super reluctant and believed a lot of these conspiracy theories, even having their own daughter, like as a doctor, tell them like you should get vaccinated. They were super reluctant. And basically I told them, if you don't get vaccinated, you can't see your grandchildren, like my kids. And it wasn't because I was trying to protect my kids from them. I just knew that they would do it because they can't go without seeing the kids. It was, I wanted just them to get vaccinated for them, not for my kids, but it was a way to do it. And it worked. And I think they're very grateful for it now. And so when I see my patients who are really reluctant, especially the ones who've heard like this or that on the internet, I tell them, like, if you were my mom, I would force you to get vaccinated because I forced my mom to get vaccinated. Like, that's, I just believe in the vaccine and it working so much. So yeah, somebody else asked, like, am I scared of getting it from my patients? So in COVID clinic, I'm wearing full PPE. So this is probably the safest place for me to see somebody with a fever, cough, shortness of breath. I do COVID clinic once a week on Thursdays, but every other day of the week, I see patients who have colds and things who turn out to be positive that I was not wearing my full PPE, but they didn't have a cough, fever, or shortness of breath, so they got routed to our regular clinic. I was fortunate enough to go ahead and get the booster, so I have had 3 doses of the vaccine at this point. And so I feel pretty comfortable, you know, just doing like very frequent hand washing, always wearing my mask in the rooms. And I'm not like super scared of bringing it home to my family. That said, I cannot wait till my kids can get vaccinated. So yeah.
That's so awesome. And just to let you guys know that right here, at least for me as a teacher in LAUSD, we've had very limited case because we have been one of the most strict districts. And we were comparing our data with that of Florida's, where I know at least 15 educators, if not more, did pass away, and a lot of kids got sick. So that's something definitely that what we're trying to push to get as many kids as possible, so we could, you know, just protect ourselves and hopefully one day take up our mask. But some people are scared of needles. So Emiliano asked, can the vaccine be taken as a drink, even though it has to be in your veins?
Take it away, Nacho.
Unfortunately, no, Emiliano. There's not yet. You know, one of my favorite shows, one of my favorite things to watch on TV used to be Star Trek, right? And in Star Trek, they have these cool little things where they just like kind of put it next to your skin and it's right. And it's like, okay, the medicine is in, right? We don't have that yet, unfortunately, my friend. You know, maybe in the future, but right now, that's all we have. But you know, it's a little bit of pain. A little bit of pain. It's like a little, not even a bee bite to prevent like a lifetime of problems, right? So that's what I tell my patients. And my wife, who Brenda, Dr. Campos Bitsi was mentioning, who, you know, is super afraid of, she, one of the most incredible doctors I know, but like is super afraid of needles. And to the point where when the COVID vaccine came up, she was like first in line. She's like, go, like right now, like let's do this. Because she understands how bad it can get. So, you know, no, unfortunately, there's no oral things right now, my friend. Sorry.
Or maybe you guys could answer this for me. What is in the COVID vaccine?
Yeah. So the big thing that's caused all the fuss, right, is something called the messenger RNA. Have you guys learned about, I forget when if it's in middle school or in high school that you start learning mRNA stuff? Probably high school, huh?
Probably high school.
Probably high school, maybe even college. It all blurs.
I learned about it last week. I don't know.
To the very shallow level.
Yeah. It's
Yeah.
like cell bio. It's like when you learn cell bio, right? Like,
Yeah, when
right?
you learn, so it's I mean, everybody's heard of DNA, right? Like, at least from Jurassic Park, Dino DNA. And
You're dating yourself, Brenda. You're dating
I
yourself.
know, but you didn't do with Star Trek. I was like, no, you're not getting anybody with that Star Trek reference.
Jurassic World.
Yeah.
So messenger RNA, it's literally like a map, I would say, or like a code. Like it's hard to, but basically your body has in your cells, so like that kind of level, like down, your body has a way to read messenger RNA, and like it's like reading instructions, like a recipe, right? It's like reading recipes on how to make chocolate chip cookies, and your body is able to read that recipe and make the chocolate chip cookies. So obviously the mRNA vaccine isn't putting chocolate chip cookies in your blood, it's putting in the spike protein of COVID. So one of you, or more than one of you, had it on your PowerPoint slide that the coronavirus looks like a big globe that has a bunch of spikes on it. So the spikes are what allow the virus to get into your cells in your body and cause destruction. And so by making antibodies, so your natural defenses to fight those spikes when they show up, you're able to not let the spikes get a foothold into your cells and stuff. So mRNA is the biggest ingredient that's in the COVID vaccine. It's a recipe, and then your body makes the spike protein without the rest of the virus, just the spike protein, so that your body sees it and says, that is a foreign thing, we should attack it. Let's make a whole army force against that spike, so that in the future, if your body was actually exposed to the virus that's full of those spikes, it's like, I've seen you before, we were ready for you, and then they destroy the spike and the spike can't get you. Clarification, you can help me, Nacho.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Totally.
Yeah.
It's the same. The way that's exactly right. The way I usually describe it is like, every cell in our body has like machines, right? Like little tiny machines that make your cells work, right? And one of those machines, their job is to read the mRNA that our body makes to make the proteins, right? That's what mRNA does. Is it's kind of like the instructions on how to make proteins, like chocolate chip cookies, right? And so what we did, what some very, very intelligent scientists have done, is say, well, I'm going to introduce a new recipe into this machine, right? And I'm going to make it make this protein, just the protein, not the virus, just that one protein, right? I'm going to make it make that protein so that our body can see the protein and say, that's weird, and like attack it, right? The thing is, the mRNA, just like our mRNA in our body, like after it's done its thing and it's provided those instructions, it gets chewed up by the other machines in our bodies, right? It gets chewed up and it's gone. It doesn't last very long in our body, right? And so all you're left with is a bunch of spike protein, and our bodies see the spike protein and it does its thing. Our immune system is awesome, and it attacks and it remembers that spike protein, so that if the COVID virus actually came in and saw those spike proteins on the virus, say, I know what to do with you. And it attacks and kills it. And that's it. That's what it is. What the vaccine does not have in it, okay? It does not have in it is like, I don't know, man. Like I'm lost with all the I lost track of all the like conspiracy. It doesn't have microchips. It doesn't have like nanobots. It doesn't have any of these things. It's not like the first vaccine ever. They've been using the technology, mRNA vaccine technology, for a long time. Okay, this was just the first time it was done in like mass quantities. Why? Because thank goodness we had the technology available and figured out. So now you can make it on a global scale, because hey, we're in a global pandemic, right? So that's what happened. Okay.
All right, I think Natalie wants to ask a question. I might add to what one of the students asked on Friday. Is how does the vaccine affect your body and what about the long-term effects of the vaccine on your body?
So, in the history of vaccines, no vaccine has been shown to have long-term side effects. So we have a million vaccines, right? The tetanus shot, you have your polio shot, you have your meningitis shot, your HPV shot, your pneumonia shots, your varicella, your measles, mumps, and rubella, none of those vaccines, which while this one is a little bit different, really the end goal is just it makes your body have antibodies to protect you against the viruses if they were to show up. And so no virus in the history of humans has had long-term side effects. And so this one, it hasn't been out.
Vaccine.
Oh, sorry, vaccine. Thank you. This one obviously hasn't been out as long as the other ones, but up until now, we have not seen long-term side effects with the COVID vaccine, as opposed to the virus. The virus, I think Nacho is probably, Dr. Velasquez is probably seeing a lot of the same stuff that I am of like, it's been a year since I had the pneumonia and I still feel short of breath. I still can't do everything I used to be able to do. It's been a year since I had the virus and I just feel so tired all the time, or I still have this headache, or I still can't taste anything. That I've heard over and over and over. And then people ask me, when will that go away? And I tell them, this is a new virus. It might never go away. I hope it does. Like, I hope this isn't permanent, but yeah. So, I've seen a ton of patients who've had the vaccine, a ton of patients who've had COVID. And I tell patients, if you're worried about long-term side effects, the vaccine isn't where you should be worried. You should be worried about, even if you have a mild case of the virus, what those long-term side effects might entail.
Another question that a student had is maybe it's relevant to Nacho's family is, when you're dealing with COVID patients, do you have to be quarantined?
Yeah, so that's so interesting because at the very beginning of the pandemic, we had no idea what was going on, man. Like, and our healthcare providers, like, I know that, like, maybe you guys remember or not, but like there was this, like, healthcare heroes and all this stuff. Man, I truly think that's true, because all these people that were taking care of COVID patients at the time, we were working in the dark. People like my wife were working in the dark. They're like, well, this is what we hope like protects us, but like, who knows, right? So for the longest time, man, like my wife would come home and like not touch her kids. She would go straight to the shower, like hot showers for like forever. Like her skin would be raw because she would be like wiping like soap, and so luckily now we've kind of like Dr. Campos Spitzi was alluding to, we've found that our PPE, personal protective equipment, along with hand washing and good hygiene, even in the patients that have COVID, like when you go into the room with the patient that has COVID, if you do all those things, the chances of getting it are very low. Okay. Now, that's not to say, like today, my wife is going to the ICU. She starts another ICU shift today. She's on her way out. And as soon as she comes home this afternoon, she's going to hop straight into the shower and, shower up and stuff. But no, just being around them doesn't mean that we have to be quarantined to ourselves. But there have been a lot, sometimes there's close calls or like outbreaks, exposures that say like, hey, like there was an exposure in this unit that you went to. And it's always like Dr. Campos Spitzi was saying, it's when you're not expecting it. It's when you're not ready with all your PPE and stuff. That's where people get sick. Like they did a study at my wife's hospital where who was getting sick of the people in the hospital that were getting COVID, healthcare providers that were getting COVID, where were they getting COVID? And it wasn't the ICU. It wasn't like when people were on ventilators and like sick and dying of COVID, because we know those people have COVID. You're protected. You're like all gowned up, right? Like you have everything, PAPRs, which are like helmets that you put on, right? To like make sure that like no bad air comes in there. So they're ready. The people that were getting infected are the people in the other units that weren't being careful, because COVID's everywhere. And like Dr. Campos was saying, you don't manifest symptoms like right away. Honestly, it would be great if somebody got COVID and like immediately started feeling sick, but you don't. You're infectious before you start feeling sick. And so that's why in other places, people kind of put their guard down. They get, I'm just gonna take my mask off because it's like, whatever, I'm not gonna wash my hands after what, you know what I'm saying? And that's when people get sick. So the idea for us has been, keep your guard up when you're seeing when I'm stepping foot in that hospital, right? Mask is on, gloves, I'm suiting up, right? Suiting up because I have to protect myself and my family. And I've already had to quarantine myself when there was a close call, right? Luckily, I didn't have COVID, but I didn't play with my kids for like 10 days just to make sure that like everything was okay, right? And that's the worst. So yes, so we don't have to quarantine ourselves when we come home from like work, but we have to be very careful still.
Yeah.
Last question. Larry said, but he's worried, or his question about the mutation causing variants and how that affects the vaccine, or what happens when that, like we just had the Delta variant, and like what is being done to protect ourselves in case there's more variants, or
Yeah, that's a good question. So we are all all viruses in general mutate very quickly and very easily. So I'm going to use a non-COVID example for you, HIV. So another virus that you guys all hear about, right? The HIV virus that isn't quite as scary as it used to be, but it is kind of scary still. And if HIV goes untreated, it causes AIDS, and that causes death. So the HIV virus, thankfully, years ago, we found treatments for it. The problem with that, we have really good treatments for it, actually, is that sometimes they could still cause side effects, or sometimes the person who's taking the medication isn't at a place in their life, like maybe they're addicted to drugs or something, that they have some kind of social thing going on in their life that makes it hard to take the pill every day. Literally, it's one pill they have to take once a day, and it keeps the virus away. So if a patient with HIV, let's say they get diagnosed when they're 16 years old, they diagnose it quickly, they start taking their pill once a day, every day, like a vitamin, they will live until they're 96. Like the virus that pill will always fight the virus in their body. If that patient stops taking the pill for, 3 months because it was causing them side effects, or because they had a period of homelessness and lack of transportation and couldn't get to the doctors to get their refill, whatever. The virus is a live thing, right? That's what you guys are learning in this class. That little window, it can use that little window to be like, the medicine is not in my body anymore. I am going to change so that next time this guy takes this pill, it will not work anymore. And that happens. And so that's in the HIV world. So I guess all that to say that viruses mutate. We know that. The COVID virus is obviously a virus that also mutates. Right now, our vaccines, thankfully, are still working against the Delta variant. But yeah, the fear is if we don't get herd immunity, if the majority of people don't get vaccinated, that we can continue to have mutations that the vaccine will not be effective against. So my husband's also a doctor, and he's obviously on a personal mission to get everybody vaccinated. And some people say, you do you, right? Like, you get vaccinated. I'm all about individual freedom. Like, I think my immune system works and I don't need the vaccine. So you go ahead and get yours. I'm not going to get mine. We'll all be fine. We can all live like happy and in peace with each other. So when my husband hears that argument, the argument of like, what you're not getting the vaccine actually does affect me. So he uses what he calls as the boat analogy. So he tells those patients like, okay, so let's say we're on a boat together. Like, we're on a boat and you and I are sitting here, we're on our way to, New York. And that guy starts poking holes in the bottom of the boat. Like, WTF, right? Like, quit poking holes in the boat. Like, you're not going to be like, you do you, like, go ahead, poke all the holes. We're just going to chill over here and we're going to not poke holes and you're going to poke holes and we're all going to be fine. No, that's not how it works. If you don't get vaccinated, the boat sinks, like, and that affects me. So that back to the variant, if people don't get vaccinated now, like, the virus might mutate and we might be in the same boat where we don't have a vaccine again and the boat sinks, right? So I think it's a valid fear. It's a fear in the healthcare world, in the public health world, that that if we allow this, if we don't just stamp it out, that it can mutate and that we might be in the same boat that we were 2 years ago as opposed to where we are now.
And just to put a pin on it, this isn't like in the world of medicine, this is not a controversial topic. Sorry, 1 second, my little girl is
Your little voice.
Hi. Okay, sorry. Okay, we're good. So again, sorry. It's not a controversial topic. This has happened since time immemorial, right? So your flu, right? The Spanish flu almost killed like everybody on earth, right? The H1, I don't know if you guys remember H1N1, when it happened, like, everybody was freaking out about it. Like the swine flu, everybody was freaking out about it. Like the bird flu. Remember the bird flu? Everybody was freaking out about it. All these things, the difference between the bird flu, the swine flu, the Spanish flu, like, all these things is just mutations. It's a mutation. One mutation makes everything your body has done to learn about that virus, to stop the virus, is gone, because that virus now evades those defense systems. It's not a new thing. It's happened it's happened forever, right? But with COVID, now add to COVID at the fact that COVID-19, or now COVID, all the rest of the strains are on a worldwide pandemic proportion, right? So this could happen. And to Brenda's point, if you don't suppress all of the COVID, then strains will emerge. They will. It's not a question of if, it's when, right? So we're in a race against this virus. Humanity is in a race against this virus, just like it's in a race against every other virus, to see who's going to adapt first, right? Hopefully it'll be us, because everybody will get vaccinated and will squash out the transmission of the virus from one person to another, right? Hopefully we'll win. I think we will. We have some very smart people, both making vaccines and talking to you guys, and you guys are going to be a part of those very smart people that, like, kind of disseminate good information to everybody. But yeah, man, this isn't a new thing. This has been happening forever.
And vaccines can be super effective. So I always like to bring up the polio example that maybe you guys have already learned about. But like polio, I know in your lifetime it has not been a thing. But like, for example, one of my best friends actually from medical school, Joanna Hernandez, her mom, so who's like my mom's age, she walks with a little bit of a limp because one of her legs is really skinny because she had polio when she was a kid. So like, the people who had well, then their country freaked out. Polio, right? It was affecting children. It was causing like these leg deformities and things. And they went on a mass vaccination campaign. People got vaccinated back then. And now we don't deal with polio anymore. Like, I, as a family doctor who treats children, have never seen a case of polio in a child. Like, this country eradicated polio. And to me, like, I'm like, wow, like, we do have the power to do this. We've done it before. Our country, it's not like we've been around that long, right? As a country, like, in our short history of the United States of America, we eradicated the polio virus. Like, why can't we do that with the COVID virus? Like, why can't we all unite against this stupid virus and kill it? But I'm hopeful with Nacho that humans will win against the virus mutants.
So much for your, being here and answering these questions. Well, I'm gonna try to do an experiment in the next just 7 minutes. We're gonna do breakout groups. Feel free to ask kids questions. I don't really have a structure. Students, feel free to ask questions yourself. All right, so I'm gonna try to see how this experiment goes, so we can have more kids And I'll make sure you guys are in different ones.
Okay.
You guys go into the breakout. Are you?
I ended up in the same room as Nacho. I think I want to be in join group 1 or something.
Yeah, I'm trying to see like trying to move you there.
Okay, cool.
That's alrighty, we're over here in people, that's okay. Yes, engage. We can hear some voices.
Does anyone have any questions that they didn't answer in the main room? I know there were quite a question have not been answered. So I think that we're trying to get body our most effective movement.
Are the lungs, right? So it causes pneumonia, which is a lung infection, and it makes it so that you can't get enough oxygen, and if you can't get enough oxygen, you die. But what we found is that it actually doesn't, like that's the deadliest part of your body that it affects, but it also just
Talking to them. I gotcha. So that's funny. I wish my wife would have been able to talk to you guys today too. Unfortunately, she's like I said, she started ICU today, so she didn't have time. But she grew up actually really close by. So I grew up in Northern California, a little bit different than Boyle Heights. Brenda, Dr. Campos Spitzi, grew up in the desert, which is a little bit different than Boyle Heights. But my wife grew up like smack dab in the middle of East LA. Went to school there, and so it would have been really nice for her to talk to you guys about her experiences. It might be a little bit more similar to your guys's than ours, but same. Like I said, there's a lot of ways that one could have similar experiences to each other, right? So, is anybody thinking about medicine later on in their career? Yeah, for sure. So, Dr. Cruz, Mr. Cruz is a wonderful resource. He obviously has access to us, and just let him know and work closely with him and work hard. And I know that me and Dr. Campos Spitzi will probably be around, God willing, for a while, and we'll be happy to help you guys in any way that we can. 296. Oh, nice. Lots. So yeah, so guys, Mr. Cruz, I was booted out.
Oh, well, thank you guys so much for joining. You guys put the volume down. We had a problem with the echoes, so I had to figure something else in the future for breakout groups. 'Cause
Uh-huh.
it was too chaotic right here, like with all the echoing. But thank you so much. Our class is about to end. I wish we had more time, but thank you so much. I mean, students, what do you say about this great experience that you had? They're saying thank you. I don't know if you guys heard it. Or write it in the chat, your message, your final messages to them.
I was wondering, can you email me some of their campaign posters? I would really
Sure.
honestly love to put them up in my clinic.
For sure, for sure. Thank you so much. Like, we'll do that.
That would be awesome. And I'll send you pictures.
All right. Well, I had to go like supervise the halls and stuff because kids are kids. But thank you so much, Brenda. And thank you so much, Ignacio. Like,
Bye, guys.
I know some of my kids from 10 years ago when they still remember when you guys came in and did all the stuff. So it's pretty awesome. So I'm glad we reconnected and thank you so much.
Thanks for having us.
Okay.
Bye.